is CORDIScovery. Hello and welcome to this episode of CORDIScovery with me, Abigail Acton. People often forget just how significant the wine industry is in Europe. Across the EU, there are about 2.2 million wine-growing farms looking after roughly 3.2 million hectares of vines. And every year, those vineyards turn out something like 150 million hectolitres of wine. That's around 20 billion bottles. When the entire value chain is taken into consideration, from growing the grapes to selling the bottles, the wine sector brings in around 130 billion a year to the EU economy and supports close to 3 million jobs, mostly in rural areas. Wine exports alone are worth about 18 billion a year, making wine one of Europe's top agri-food exports. But although the numbers are impressive, the industry is facing serious challenges. The last few harvests have been hit hard by droughts, heat waves, heavy rain, and disease. EU wine production in 2023 and 2024 was among the lowest of the century, and worldwide wine consumption has dropped to its lowest level since the mid-1990s. Growers are getting squeezed from both sides, more unstable harvests and weaker demand. When a bottle is poured, it isn't just a drink on the table, it's part of a sector that keeps villages alive and brings billions into the economy. So what can we do to help the situation? Our three guests, all of whom have received support from the EU's research and innovation funding programs, have some intriguing ideas. Filipe Neves dos Santos develops autonomous robots and machinery which can operate safely on steep slopes for the agricultural and forestry sectors. He works at the Centre for Robotics in Industry and Intelligence Systems, INESC TEC, in Portugal. Hello, Filipe.
Hello, Abigail.
Zoe Dulgari is Professor of Robotics and Control of Manufacturing Systems at the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. Her current research interests include learning and control of unimanual and bimanual robotic object manipulation. Hello, Zoe.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be part of this podcast.
We're very happy to have you here. Gustavo Perez Gonzalez is a senior project manager and PhD in chemistry at the Autonomous University of Barcelona. He specializes in analytical chemistry, specifically to develop secure, traceable, and immutable solutions for wine authentication. Welcome, Gustavo.
Hello.
Very nice to have you. Filipe, I'm going to turn to you first. The Scorpion project wanted to help farmers reduce the amount of chemicals they use when spraying their crops, but at the same time, maintaining the yield, efficiency, and value. So, Filipe, tell us a little bit about the problem your project wanted to help solve, for example, in the context of wine producing.
Well, Abigail, in the context of the wine production, in Portugal, we have a specific reality that also exists in 10 countries in Europe, that is producing the wine in steep slope vineyards. These steep slope vineyards, they produce the amazing port wine, as all of you know, and it has it's a premium quality wine. But there is a problem, that is there is scarcity of human labor to work on this context. And we have a problem that you have mentioned before, that is the context of climate changes, where we need solutions to make these vineyards more sustainable. And what we have done here, we have solved the problem in two ways. One thing is to find machinery that could operate on this kind of steep slope vineyards, okay? And the second situation was find solutions that can avoid the use of chemical products on these vineyards. And so here emerged the Scorpion project, where we have developed a robot that could navigate in this kind of vineyards without falling through the vineyard, and could navigate without GNSS or GPS available. And we have also developed novel technology or implement tools to apply chemical products or UV light treatments to these vineyards, make them sustainable.
Fantastic. That sounds very interesting. There's some things I need to break down there with you a little bit. UVB treatments, what is this?
Well, the UV treatments, this is a kind of light spectrum that we have on the light where we can apply to the vineyards, and the fungi, they are not good to handle with this kind of light.
Okay, so let me just break that down further. So basically there are some pests that will potentially cause damage to the vines. in the form of fungi. And if you shine a certain type of light on the fungi, it causes them to retract or break down. Is that correct?
Exactly. There is some fungi in vineyards that during the day, they put some kind of umbrella to protect against the sun, right? But during the night, they close the umbrella and to do not use so much energy. And if you apply the UV light treatment during this time, you can kill these fungi.
Very good. I mean, it sounds a little bit sneaky, but it also sounds very good.
Okay.
So you come along while they're sleeping and you zap them. Okay. And of course, that then saves the chemicals from, instead of spraying.
Yeah, you can avoid some kinds of fungicides that might be harmful for the environment. And in theory, this is a novel treatment that might have a positive impact in the sustainability of the system.
Fantastic. And I imagine maybe it might be applicable to other crops.
Yeah, this is applicable to other crops. Indeed, the UVC treatments is already being applied in greenhouses for tomatoes production, and there are some beneficial on using it. Of course, like other treatments, it should be used with some limitations and regulamentations, okay?
Yeah. Some caution.
Yeah, exactly. Because if we kill the good ones, we might kill also the bad ones. Well, in the positive way.
Yeah, the other way around. Yeah, you might get more than you were thinking. Indeed.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now, tell me a little bit more about the steep slope vineyards, because obviously that must be very challenging, and also the issue of labor.
Yeah, so Portugal has different landscapes in the reality of our country, and in the north we have more mountains, and in these mountains we have found a way to use this landscape to produce wine. Okay, but this in the past, and like was agriculture in the past, this was mostly done by human hands, right? But now we are reaching to a phase where we don't have humans to operate in this reality.
So now tell me a little bit about, because obviously our listeners can't see you, but I can see you, and I can see that you have an example of your wonderful machine. So describe it for our listeners. What have you actually come up with?
In this context of small farmers and vineyards in steep slope, we need something that is smaller and more efficient doing the operation. So they are more experts doing some operations. And so what our robots look like is something like a 4-wheels robot, right? With an articulated joint that ensures every wheel is always in contact with the soil.
Okay, so the articulated joint can manipulate the robot to make sure that it's tilted favorably. Is that correct?
It's most like this. Is more passive joint, so you don't actuate on the joint, but ensures that the 4 wheels is always in contact with the soil. And this allows you to have a good traction system on this context.
And it's autonomous?
It's fully autonomous, yes. It has capacity to understand visually what is in front of him. If it detects a trunk, it will use this trunk to localize the robot. And this is one way to localize the robot without GNSS.
So it's like a little Mars rover, but for vineyards.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah.
Fantastic. I think this is wonderful. This is a prototype. What sort of interest are you getting from actual wine producers?
Yeah, the end users, like we tell in our context, is that they want this technology. And what we have done was to close the innovation gap that we have identified in the European product innovation. That is to take this to the market. So we have 10 years of work that we aim to put in the market with the main companies that we have in Portugal. Indeed, they are 4 competitors that produce machinery for agriculture, and we have joined them to start producing this technology and put in the market. So at this stage, we are moving this technology to the market through these companies that are the guys that can put them in the markets.
Oh, that sounds like a very exciting time. You must be very proud of what you've managed to achieve.
Yeah, I will be more proud when I see this in reality. First this sold in the...
Yeah, there's still quite a lot of work to go. Yeah, no, it's wonderful. It's a great solution for people who otherwise might be really stuck not having the laborers that can go into these tricky environments and so on. So I think it's wonderful. This is a slightly disruptive technology. I mean, it's obviously much needed and it's plugging a gap, but do you think that there is any kind of negativity or reluctance when it comes to moving more to robotic tools in agriculture?
Well, that is a very common question that the people pose to me. That is, you are stealing the job of the people. That will be an issue. That in reality, that is not true, because in nowadays we have the situation of immigrations But most of these people, they like to have also good jobs, not be exposed to 40 degrees temperature, to a high labor context that is not easy to work on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say that this is not the problem is not there, and there is a reality that is if we don't have this machinery, most of these steep slope vineyards will not exist in the future, and instead of beautiful images that we might have on the river with the boats, seeing the amazing vineyards. Perhaps in the future, if we don't make them sustainable with the robotics and other solutions, perhaps they will exist in the future. And so we are not killing the jobs. We are bringing more quality for life for the operators of this kind of vineyards. And we are making this more sustainable for the future. Okay.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Take your point completely. Thank you so much for that insight, Filipe. Very interesting. I'm going to turn to Zoe now. Zoe, your work also focused on automation, but at a later stage and involving advanced robotics. So the Bacchus project tested a system in a vineyard environment that can monitor and harvest grapes of different varieties with very delicate precision. Can you tell us, please, Zoe, what makes the development of robotic harvesters of this sort so challenging?
Well, what we wanted to do is to develop a robotic harvester that is able to navigate safely in the vinegar road, identify the grapes of the appropriate level of maturity, and cut them like a human does. So let us say that I stand in front of a vine and I have selected a grape that looks delicious to me and I want to cut it. So what I do to cut it is to reach and hold the grape with one hand, softly pull it towards me to stretch its pedicle, possibly move my head around to have a clear view of it because the surrounding leaves and branches may occlude my vision, while with my other hand, with which I hold the cutter, I reach and cut the pentacle in a coordinated, synchronized manner. This is the way as humans act, using both hands when handling sensitive objects, and we do so without thinking a lot about it. So that's what I wanted my robotic harvester to work like, and harvesting these good quality grapes in a wine and a grape vineyard. And certainly this is dexterous bimanual tasks that presents a lot of challenges for a robotic system.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you're right. We take it for granted, but when you break it down, it's a highly sophisticated series of movements. So, how on earth did you go about designing and creating such a complex arm?
Well, it is true that robots have been used in agricultural tasks before the project started, but only a few of these robots were used for crop harvesting. These were mainly single mobile robotic arms, and they have been used in collecting crops like apples, which could, for example, be detached by pulling the apple by using only one hand, or they were equipped with a specialized gripper that was able to simultaneously cut the pedicle and hold it by it. And this type of solutions were not appropriate for wine grape harvesting.
Well, obviously, the grapes are much more vulnerable. They're much more tender, aren't they? I mean, you can do things to an apple that you couldn't.
Exactly. You will squeeze it and completely destroy the quality of it and the quality of the wine that comes after that. So what we wanted in Bacchus project was to fill this gap and expand the variety of crops that can be harvested autonomously by developing this mobile bimanual robot that could act like the humans act while harvesting wine grapes. So we certainly did not start from scratch. For the final system, we had to integrate an omnidirectional mobile platform on wheels with two robotic arms.
So omnidirectional. So basically you had a platform on wheels that could turn around completely.
Yes, I mean, omnidirectional means that we can move sideways as well as forward and backwards. It's more than our cars, so.
Right.
We also have to, we used a gripper with two special 3D printed gripper fingers, which were adapted to the size of the grape variety we harvest.
Okay, hang on a second. Is the benefit of the 3D printing that you can then adjust it according to precisely what it is you're picking?
Exactly. You can do so you are able to adapt to the size of the object you hold, particularly when this object is sensitive. So you can hold the grape with one hand, while in the other hand we have attached a cutter a normal cutter than the human, what the human uses, and also a camera in order to identify the pentacle. In that sense, we depart a little bit from the human solution because our eyes are not attached to a head, to a robotic head, but we attach our eyes on the hand with a cutter.
Well, that sounds like a good place to put it. And when we keep saying pentacle, we mean the stem. Yeah, for us, normally it would be the stem. Okay, so super. And I understand also, and I find this really, really amazing, is not only have you come up with this fantastic way to automate intelligently and with great dexterity the harvesting process, but you have sensors on your robot that can detect the sugar level as well, I believe.
Exactly.
Tell us a little about that, please, Zoe.
Yes. Well, the decision on which grapes to harvest was based on the appropriate maturity level, the sugar content of each grape, which was made with the help of a hyperspectral camera and artificial intelligence algorithms, which could detect the sugar level.
Okay, so what is a hyperspectral camera?
A hyperspectral camera is a camera that works on a band of the light spectrum that is not visible. And it can actually detect the contents, the chemical contents of the object it's looking at. So in this way, there is no more need to resort to human estimates of the maturity of the crop or to resort to the chemical lab analysis of the grape samples.
So instead of having to send it off for analysis, and that takes time, and I guess also maybe the time it takes is exactly the moment you should be harvesting and you might miss the ideal window, this identifies in real time the sugar level.
Exactly.
And you said you use AI to interpret the visual imageries that you're getting from the camera. Is that correct?
We interpret this after we train our algorithms, of course. So we can, in real time, detect the sugar level and decide whether this grape is mature enough in order to collect it. And in this way, we can perform selective harvesting. So immature grapes are left on the vine to be harvested at a later stage when reaching the appropriate sugar level. And in this way, harvesting only the grapes that are at their optimal state increases the quality of the produced wine.
No, I can see that. Are you seeing much interest from industry? Are you trying prototypes out at all of this?
Well, during the project, we have invited a lot of wine grape growers from Italy in our demonstration site, which was a vineyard in near Thessaloniki, which is actually a vineyard of a wine producer of the north of Greece. And here we have actually tested our prototypes, and they were very, very interested in the product. And I believe, of course, they will be the future in the field. And it is always a tool. It's a co-worker rather than a replacement of the human.
Yeah, absolutely, Zoe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn to you now, Gustavo. It's a special occasion. So you decide to go a little crazy and buy a really good bottle of wine. But can you be sure it's the real thing? Trace Windu is hoping to make that purchase a little more reliable. Gustavo, we've followed the life of the wine from planting to harvesting, but challenges facing wine producers don't end there. Counterfeit or forgery is something that we may think of when it comes to luxury labels. But can you tell us how it impacts the wine industry?
Well, I would say that wine is one of those products that you trust in, let's say, the reputation of the producer. I mean, you unless you want to verify anything at the moment of you are choosing the wine or the supermarket or the restaurant, but sometimes you want to understand, okay, can I verify which is the origin of the wine? But nowadays, if you think yourself, you are buying a promise. You are buying the place, the practice, the reputation, because all these producers are trying to sell you a story. But I mean, what happens when there is an abuse of that? Because there is the mislabeling, there is the counterfeit, and then the damage, when this occurs, the damage affects everybody. It's not just the winery. It's all the small producers all around in this denomination that are affected because someone was trying to cut the corners.
Absolutely. I'm a little curious. How does the forgery or the counterfeiting, how does that actually take place? Do people steal labels and just put it on sort of much cheaper wine?
You could be really surprised about how is the sophistication there. I mean, the typical one is the relabeling. You have a cheaper wine, and you put it into a bottle that looks premium, and then you apply a forge label, a capsule that mimics the real thing. For me, the most curious one, I was not really aware about that, is the bottle reuse. In fact, you have genuine bottles that are collected, they are refilled, and they are resealed because the glass and the shape look authentic. Sometimes it's you could even have the situation of the complete counterfeit for the product. It's the fake packaging from scratch, the fake label, the fake barcodes. And you sold through the channel, and it seems that is completely legitimate.
Right.
So the counterfeit can enter the supply chain. So they go through the gray market traders, even online marketplace. There are the opportunistic people doing the intermediation, or even mix it with the real stocks. You put within the volume, you put the fake ones, and you are not a specialist because you receive the bottle, and for you, okay, that's premium, resells premium. I recall the bottle, the stamp, whatever. You test. You are not a professional sommelier. You pay that, but you are not receiving what
you
was
paid
expected.
for. Yeah. So what did Trace Wine develop to make this counterfeiting more difficult?
Well, I would say, I'm trying to put it in normal words.
Because it is quite technical, so thank you for that.
No. I mean, for us, when we are explaining to the target audiences, it's just think about as a passport system for a wine. You get the bottle, they get this smart passport, smart tag, let's say in this way. It's a unique one, and you get to stick to the bottle. So you can see a QR code, and sometimes you have extra internal layers that you are unable to check it, where all the hidden information is hidden there to verify all the transaction.
So what do you mean by hidden information and layers that you can't check? What do you mean?
You have invisible inks there where you can have something there. It's plenty. You see, the people from post offices and so on, the people doing the currency and all this, they are printing, they have techniques where you are unable to check it. So they are applying also to the wine labels.
Oh, very interesting. So there's sort of hidden security measures, like, as you say, there's sort of writing that you can't see. Maybe some things that you have to scan with a certain type of scanner.
Yeah. And even doing the scan, depending on the rights that you have assigned as a user, you can have access to certain information or not.
Okay.
So you have different ways. You could have a stockpile of different layers with different type of information because not everybody is interested in the same type of information. So you have the layer of quality assurance. You have the layer of who is moving or who is trading with the wine. The section for just the wine producers about gathering all the information for the production because they had to reply to the national authorities for the health issues. Plenty of stakeholders there that they have different rights, different ways of putting information in the system and so on.
Oh, that's great. So the label contains various layers of information depending on the target user. The target user can have access to that information depending on the rights that they are assigned by the system. Is that correct? Yes, I think. And basically, you're building up information that is information from people concerned with logistics, people who are concerned with authenticity, people who... And is there something there also for just the purchaser? Is there something that the buyer can find out about the wine that they're buying?
It's the typical. It depends on the experience, the curiosity that the buyer that they could have access. At the end, is what we return to the discussion about the promise. You want to verify, and the system provides you an information that is trusted, that it comes from the producer in some way. So you have this chain of, let's say, information that verifies that is from that place.
So hang on a second. I'm a buyer. I go into a supermarket or I go into a wine shop. I take a bottle of wine off the shelf. I can see there's this QR code. What do I do?
Yeah, you scan it. You scan the QR code, and then it brings you to an interface where it provides all the information from the producer, the season, the typical information that it can provide you. But at the end, you have some kind of verification that this belongs to that because we connected all the analysis that were performed there to verify that is coming from the specific terroir, the specific chateau that developed it. Because there is also a hidden information that the producers make the analysis of the wine, and then there is something like a fingerprint that is unique from this terroir, and then is legitimate to that QR code. So we try to connect what is on the soil, in the wine.
Okay, fantastic. I'm seeing much more information than I just see on the label.
Sure. I mean, you have the confidence.
Yeah.
You are trying to buy the confidence in some way.
And so what happens? I've just thought of something horrendous. Can you imagine, Gustavo? I go to an incredibly expensive restaurant. Maybe I'm trying to impress somebody. And I order an incredibly expensive bottle of wine. And it comes to the table. And I say, can I scan this with my phone? Do I say that? Don't I feel a little strange saying, can I scan this? Imagine I have the confidence and I think, okay, I will scan. And I say, can I scan? And it's not the real thing.
Then I mean, it's up to you. You decide. I mean, if you want to go into travels, but it's even with we have been also experienced during the project with sommeliers and the people that was really during the typical networking events, tasting some wines and so on. And they don't get any issue about explaining to the waiter, you see, that's not what we are paying, or this is spoiled or whatever. So then you are someone that you don't have this tasting experience. You have the mobile, and you can ensure that you see this is not what you were providing to me. I'm not gonna pay for that, or you can. Up to you. You have another, let's say, utility application that can help you in this type of situations.
Yes. I mean, it's up to you how you use the information.
Yeah.
Super. So do you think we'll see such a label in the shops anytime soon? Does the industry seem keen to actually implement this interesting technology?
Well, according to our feedback, the exchange with the winemakers that were inside of the project, and also the pilots that we were developing, I would say yes. I mean, we already have some pilots where the producers prepared the wines, they were analyzed, the passport was produced, and I would say the people were doing the tests at the supermarket, that they were getting the scans and so on. So the pilot is already there, and one of the partners of the project, they even have some type of internal deals with some of the partners that it seems that they're going to apply for mass production.
Okay, cool.
So I would say in the future, it's not from our point of view, it's not so far away from that.
Great.
It's something that we need a prescriptor. We need a winery that becomes a pathfinder, and then they test, they demonstrate, and then we will have the followers.
Yeah.
So at the end, we were trying to explain to the winemakers, we are selling proofs, not promises.
Yes.
I mean, the scan is just to verify, to keep the confidence. So the consumers, at the end, they have a friendly experience, and you can complement with your vineyard story, with the tasting notes, with the food pairing, and so on. You are doing your business as usual, but with this authenticity, with this confidence. And at the end, you have this trusted journey timeline. It's not just marketing. It's just to provide what you promise, and they have the confidence of whatever you drink. It's what it was already on the bottle.
Right, what you paid for. Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for Gustavo? Yes, Zoe, what would you like to ask?
I was wondering, how can one not forge that type of label that they can, can't you have the QR code copied, let's say, and put it in another bottle and that is contain the wrong type of wine?
Well, this is one of the critical questions that the winemakers were asking to us during the project. I mean, is a QR code something that someone can copy easily? Well, let's say the QR code doesn't behave like a real bottle. I mean, you have a system that spots, that duplicates, scans impossible journeys or abnormal scan patterns with tamper evidence, or let's say that it's very hard to clone in a convincing way. When you are copying the QR code, is copying the stamp, but I mean, you have to replicate the journey of the bottle. And what we are doing is that the QR code links to a unique digital identity, to a fingerprint, to the passport, not just a web page. So when the identity is scanned, the system checks whether the scan makes sense in the context. So if the same ID, the same fingerprint, the same passport suddenly appears in two countries or gets scanned 200 times in short time before it really even reaches the market, then you have a red flag, and those patterns are very hard to counterfeit to control this scale. So this is what we were explaining to the winemakers at the end, and it seems that they were convinced.
Oh, well, it sounds very convincing to me as well. Thank you very much, Gustavo. Beautifully explained in a very important project. Excellent.
Thanks to you for giving us the chance to explain our activities during the project.
You're very welcome. Well, thanks very much to the three of you for your time. I think that's going to make a really, really interesting work that you're all doing. And I hope your equipment is taken up by lots of producers.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for sharing your time with us. Goodbye.
Lovely having you. Thank you. If you've enjoyed this podcast, follow us on Spotify or Apple and check out the podcast homepage on the Cordis website. Subscribe to make sure the hottest research in EU-funded science and innovation isn't passing you by. And if you're enjoying listening, why not spread the word? We've talked about maritime safety and pandemic preparedness, and we've also talked about the wonderful impact of your own gut microbiome. So come and check out the research that's revealing what makes our world tick. We're always happy to hear from you. Drop us a line, editorial@cordis.europa.eu. Until next time.